Hey maths guys, it's Guy Does Maths. We're here to level up your third game. It's got 5 challenging levels of question. Let's see how we get on, okay? So first one, we're going to do some basic rationalising. That's our core skills. So we're going to start with 6 over 2 root 3 minus 3 root 2. So remember, rationalising, we want to get rid of these thirds in the denominator. That's our aim, right? So we're going to multiply by what we call the conjugate. That's our fancy maths word. So we're going to take this denominator here with the 2 root 3 and the 3 root 2. We're going to swap that sign in the middle to a plus instead. Okay, so now we've got our thing we're going to multiply, but we've got to make sure we're going to multiply the numerator by exactly the same thing. Otherwise, we're changing the fraction. You can't randomly change it. So we put our 2 root 3 plus 3 root 2 in the numerator, and now we can start expanding our brackets. Okay, so remember, they are double brackets. So let's put some brackets in to help us. And then off we go. So numerator's nice and easy in this case. We've got 6 times 2 root 3. So that's going to be nice and simple. It's just going to be 12 root 3. And we've got 6 times 3 root 2, which is going to be 18 root 2. So that's our numerator sorted. So let's have a look at our denominator. Now, you might recognise we've got the same thing in each bracket, but with a different sign. So that is a case of our difference of 2 squares, or dots as we commonly refer to it. So I don't need to worry about the middle terms. I can just do the 2 root 3 times the 2 root 3. So that would be 2 root 3 squared. Figure that one out in a minute. And then I've got minus times a plus with the 3 root 2 times the 3 root 2. So I've got 3 root 2 squared. Okay? So if I leave my numerator as it is, and then I can start thinking about what this denominator is going to be. So if I square 2 root 3, I have to square both parts. So I square the 2, that gets me a 4. If I square root 3, it's just a 3. So I get 4 times 3, which is 12. And I've got the same thing here. So 3 squared is 9. Root 2 squared, just 2. 9 times 2 gets me 18. I've got rid of my thirds from the denominator, which is what we wanted to do, wasn't it? Okay. So if we simplify that, we can see we now have a minus 6. So we can't leave it like that, right? That's not simplified. So if we have a look, 12 and 18, both divide by 6. We've got the minus as well. We need to make sure we don't forget. So we're going to end up with our minus 2 root 3. 12 divided by minus 6 gets us our minus 2. And then minus 3 root 2. 18 divided by minus 6. And there we have rationalised. Level 1 complete. All good? Time to move on to level 2. So if we have a look at our level 2, this time we're going to try and solve an equation. So we're going to try and find out the value of x. Got some thirds floating around in there. Let's see what we can do with that one. Okay, so we've got x root 8 minus 5 equals root 2 minus 3x. So if we remember the aim when we're solving, we want to get to a point where it says x equals. So we need to put all of our x's onto one side of our equation. Okay, so we're going to move this minus 3x over here. So we've got x root 8 plus 3x. And at the same time, because we're pro mathematicians, we're going to move this minus 5 over to the other side. So we've got root 2 plus 5. All right, now if our aim is to get to just x equals, we want x to just appear once. So we can factorise out the x from this left-hand side here to write root 8 plus 3, and we've got our root 2 plus 5. So this x here is being multiplied by our bracket. So if we want to get this x on its own, we're going to have to divide, aren't we? All right, so we're going to do root 2 plus 5 over root 8 plus 3. Now I know that some of you are looking at that saying that root 8, that looks awfully familiar, a bit suspicious. I could simplify that. Absolutely, of course we can. So we can simplify root 8 if we want to, remembering that that would be root 2 times root 4, and root 4 is just 2. So we can rewrite it as 2 root 2, which means we can simplify here and replace that instead. Okay, now we can't leave our answer like this because we've got to rationalise it. That's our same skill as level 1, right? So normally our levels build on the previous ones. So here I'm going to have to multiply by 2 root 2 minus 3. Same thing with the plus switch for a minus. And then 2 root 2 minus 3 in the numerator as well. Okay, and now we just need to go through and simplify. So we've got our double brackets again. Put all of those in. So this time I'm going to start with the denominator. So if we do our denominator first, we've got 2 root 2 times 2 root 2. So we can write our 2 root 2 squared like we did before. We've got our plus 3 times minus 3. So that's going to be minus 9. Remember, we don't need the middle terms because it's our difference of 2 squares. If we look at our numerator, we've got root 2 times 2 root 2. So if we do that, root 2 times root 2 would just be 2. So then times by this other 2 here gets us 4. So root 2 times 2 root 2 is 4. We've got minus 3 root 2. When we multiply those, we've got plus 10 root 2. And then we've got 5 times minus 3, or minus 15 on the end. Okay? So if we do a bit of simplifying, try and tidy up a little bit. So in our denominator, we've got this 2 root 2. We're going to square that. So that gets us 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 9. Okay? Then if we have a look in our numerator, we've got 4 minus 15. So that would be minus 11. And then I've got minus 3 root 2 plus 10 root 2. So if I've got minus 3 of it, and then I add 10 of it, I must have 7 of it. So I've got plus 7 root 2. And if I do a little bit more, just to tidy up, I've got 8 minus 9, gets me a minus 1. And then if I divide through, because I don't want to leave it like that with my minus 1 in the denominator, I want to have a nice tidy answer. So I'm going to have my minus 11 divided by minus 1 is just 11. And I get my minus 7 root 2. Level 2 complete. Still not too bad. Smashing it out, good job. See what happens in our level 3. So level 3, we've got a square, has a diagonal of length 2 plus root 2. We're going to try and find out what the area of that square would be. So if we're ever not sure, we're going to draw ourselves a quick diagram, see what's going on. So if I draw myself a square, not bad. If I add my diagonal in, we know this length here is 2 plus root 2. Okay, so that's what we've been told in our question over here. Our length is 2 plus root 2. And we want to find out the area. So the bit I don't know about my square that I would need to find the area is the length of these sides. So we need to label those. So go with our algebraic tradition, stick an x on, why not? Which means this would also be an x as well, because it's a square after all. So if we have a think and say, okay, well, what could we do that kind of looks familiar with that? Remembering we have right angles in these corners. Looks like a bit of Pythagoras to me. So we know that x squared, this short side here, plus x squared, the other short side, would have to equal 2 plus root 2 squared. There we go. So let's see what we can do with that. So left-hand side just becomes 2x squared. And now remember, these are double brackets. So if it helps, you can write it out twice. Make sure we're going to get all those terms we need. So 2 times 2 gets me 4. I've then got 2 root 2 and another 2 root 2. So that's 4 root 2. And I've got root 2 times root 2, which would be 2 on the end. All right, so I've got 2x squared equals 6 plus 4 root 2, which means that x squared would equal 3 plus 2 root 2. Then we might think, oh, well, I need to find out the length of these sides, so I need to square root it. Let's just pause a second. If I said, here's a side, and the lengths are x for here and here, and said, what's the area of that square? I think you'd just say x times x, which is just x squared. This is the area. We've found it. Area is actually this x squared here from our square that we drew with the x as the side length. Okay, so the area is just 3 plus 2 root 2. Level 3 complete. Awesome job. So let's see what's happening on our level 4. Ooh, we've got a third in a third. We're going to try and simplify root 7 plus 4 root 3. So root 7 plus 4 root 3. Now, it's difficult to know where to start, I suppose. You kind of look at it and think, oh, I've not seen anything like this before. So we're going to make a bit of a guess as to what we think our answer might look like. And say, well, it might be root A plus root B. Right, so we're looking at that and say, if I simplify it, maybe I only get a couple of different thirds that I add together. And think, well, what could I do now? All right. So if we now look at this algebraically, we can get rid of this root sign over here by squaring both sides. So if we square both sides, we get 7 plus 4 root 3. But now we need to square this right-hand side as well. Okay? Now, like before, we've seen it loads of times so far in our different levels. This is just a double bracket. So let's write it out twice, make sure we don't miss any terms. So root A plus root B. So if we expand that right-hand side out, we've got root A times root A. It's just an A. We've got root A times root B. Remember, our rules of thirds means we could write that as root AB. Then we've got a root B times root A, so that's the same thing again. And then this root B times root B, just a B over here. So if we check now, we've got a plus b plus 2 root ab equals 7 plus 4 root 3. Yeah. It's not really helped. It doesn't look like it's helped because we've got this a here, this b here. We've got no obvious equation we can solve. But if we take a little look, what we could do is say, well, this a plus b, this is the part here that doesn't have a root sign. And this on the left-hand side is the only bit that doesn't have a root sign. So that means these two parts have to be equal to each other. So we could write that down as an equation and say that 7 has to equal a plus b. Okay? I can then look at the parts that do have a root and say, well, this 4 root 3 here and this 2 root ab here, they're the only bits that do have a root sign. So they have to be equal as well. So I now know that 4 root 3 has to equal 2 root ab. So we then say, okay, well, that looks familiar. It's just simultaneous equations. So a plus b equals 7. I can't really do much with that. But this one over here, I can do a bit of simplifying with. So I can divide both sides by 2. Make that a 2 there instead. So I've got 2 root 3 equals root ab. Then I can square both sides. So now it's just an AB, and if I square this, I've seen it a few times already, 2 squared gets me 4, root 3 squared gets me 3, 4 times 3 would be 12. So here are our two simultaneous equations we can now solve. So we have a plus b is 7, ab equals 12. So now we're going to try and do some of our skills with our simultaneous equations to get these done. So I would rearrange this one up here. So if I say 7 minus b equals a, I can now substitute that into this equation over here. 12 equals 7 minus b times b. Expand that out, gets me 7b minus b squared. Rearrange it, starting to look a bit like a quadratic. And I get b squared minus 7b plus 12 equals 0. It does factorize. It factorizes. Of course it does, we can recognize that. So remember, we're looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to make 12, but add to make minus 7. So if we think carefully, we can put a minus 3 and a minus 4 in there, which means that b is equal to 3 or 4. And if we then say, well, I need to find out my value for a as well, simultaneous equations, remember, don't forget, we've only got half an answer so far. If I go back to my 7 equals a plus b, or even my a equals 7 minus b, I can then say that a would be 7 minus 3, or 4, or a would be 7 minus 4, which is 3. So our two values are 3 and 4, and it doesn't actually matter which one's a or b, because remember up here where we wrote it, root 3 plus root 4, or root 4 plus root 3 is the same thing. Okay? So if we go back, we've got our 7 plus 4 root 3 equals root 4 plus root 3, but then root 4 we know is just 2. So it's just 2 plus root 3. So all of that, the square root of 7 plus 4 root 3, is just 2 plus root 3. Level 4 done. I think we're ready now. So we've got root x plus 6 minus root x minus 2 equals 1. So we've got two separate square root signs that we need to try and deal with. So we've got root x plus 6 minus root x minus 2 equal to 1. So it's a bit like before, really. We might not have seen something that looks like this. So we think, okay, what can we do? What can we try? So our instincts might be to square it. That might be one option. We say, well, that would help get rid of some square root signs. But I wouldn't say it's the easiest one. It will work. You can give it a go. Let me know in the comments how you get on with that. What I would do, I would move this root x minus 2 to the other side first, because it's going to make things a little bit simpler. Because now when I do 1 plus root x minus 2, now when I square both sides, this bit's going to work out really nicely, because when I square it, the root sign is just going to disappear. If I'd squared it here, I've got to do a double bracket, like we've done before in a few questions, which is going to add more work. Okay, but if I square now, I just get x plus 6 equals, now this one I do have to do as a double bracket, but it's only got one square root sign in it. So that makes life a bit easier. So we'll do like we did before. Let's write it out twice. Make sure we don't miss anything. So 1 plus root x minus 2. So I've still got my x plus 6 on this side. So if I go through now and expand it just like any double bracket, don't be put off by this root x minus 2. It's just the root of something. So 1 times 1. And I've got 1 times root x minus 2. And I've got another 1 times root x minus 2. And then I've got root x minus 2 times root x minus 2. Well, that's just getting rid of the root sign, because it's the same thing, right? So I now know that I'm going to have plus x minus 2 tagged on the end. So if I look and see what I can simplify now, I have my x plus 6 here, and I've got x over here. I've got a 1 and a minus 2, so I've got x minus 1, and then I have 2 root x minus 2 terms that I can bring together. All right, well, look what's happened. These x's take x from both sides. That makes life a bit easier. This minus 1 here, I can move across to make it 7 equals 2 root x minus 2. I can even divide by this 2 here. So now, seems like a really obvious thing to do. Now I can just square both sides like we've done once. So we've actually ended up squaring twice separately at different points to then get 49 over 4 equals x minus 2. Just going to bump that 2 across. So we've got 49 over 4 plus 2 equals x. You can do that. Don't need a calculator. It's going to be 53. Can't write today. 53 over 4 equals x. Level 5 all done. So let me know in the comments how you got on with those. What level do you think you're at? We're aiming for that absolute top Surd Master level 4, level 5 stuff. Like and subscribe for more content from me. Awesome stuff. Job well done.